But, we've had dozens of family members killed during this conflict.
Dozens?
Dozens of family killed during this conflict. We've also had, dozens of family members killed generationally. I've had family members killed in 2014. I've had family members killed 20 years ago. I've had family members killed 30 years ago. I've had family members that were killed in hospitals when hospitals were bombed in the 50s and the 60s in Gaza. So, this whole thing, and, I don't want to put you on the spot, but, I remember when I was in Gaza and I'd watch some of, your debates and, you were saying that you were having a moral quandary over what was going on. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, it's not a moral quandary for me, and it's not a moral quandary for millions of people around the world. Like, we're sat here and I'm putting headless children and I'm handing them over to mothers and they're hugging them and they're putting them into body bags. When we have a mass casualty event, I'm stepping over children as they're bleeding out to death on the floor because I know we don't have the medical equipment to treat them. When I'm trying to use an ultrasound machine to do a scan on someone, the cords have been cut because Israeli soldiers have cut the cords of ultrasound machines. I've had family members who have died because the dialysis machines are filled with bullet holes. So, just to put it into context, the first 24 days of this conflict, 1,900 children were killed in the first 24 days. That's more than any other conflict anywhere around the world in a whole year, and in this tiny population of Gaza. What's been going on didn't start on October the 7th. It's been 75 years, and I can attest to that because I was ethnically cleansed out of Gaza, and so was my family, So it didn't start on October the 7th. What do I think about October 7th? Horrific. Taking of women and children as hostages, killing innocent people. As a Palestinian, I know how much that hurts. So all I have is nothing but sympathy for the people who suffered on October the 7th. But at the same time, people started this story on October the 7th. And for me, growing up in poverty, growing up without running water in the house, growing up watching, us have to give up our savings all the time to support family back in Gaza and back, for me, it never started on October the 7th. For me, it started every day when I was being bullied at school. It started when I had to move from city to city because my dad never got a permanent job. Those are the kind of things where, I look at it and there was a lot of emotions on October the 7th. Before Hamas, it was the PLO.
Right.
And before the PLO, it was the Egyptians, and before then it was somebody else. Look, at the end of the day, the root cause is the problem. The root cause is the occupation. The root cause is inequality. The root cause is that I don't have the right to return to my home, that my father doesn't have the right to return, that my grandfather is buried in Gaza, my dad's never been able to go see him. When we talk about the root causes, when we talk about, what Hamas did on October the 7th, this is just a cycle. And the cycle always comes back to, instead of looking at the symptoms, I don't want to look at the symptoms, I want to look at the causes. The causes is inequality, is a lack of justice, and I just want justice for the Palestinian people. And I don't want that justice to be violence and killing of innocent Israelis.
You want the same human rights?
I just want the same human rights.
Yeah, Palestinians live with the same rights as Israelis.
Well, look, I think the Israelis are making it very difficult to have a two-state solution. With the expansion of settlements in the West Bank and moving in...
Which is appalling.
Which is moving in millions of settlers. It's making a two-state solution impossible. Really, what's going to happen is eventually there'll be a one-state solution with equality for Muslims and Jews and anybody else living on that land. And eventually Palestinians will have the right to return, and they will return back to Palestine. And I feel like, it's kind of ironic, really, because they've avoided so much in giving the Palestinians a state and a home. And they've tried to destroy this two-state solution, that eventually what will happen is a one-state solution. And eventually the majority that they've tried to build by ethnically cleansing, by taking up more and more land, will go away, because eventually the Palestinians will return home. And eventually, given all the Palestinian refugees all around the world, eventually the Palestinians will outnumber the Jewish population. And that's, I think, what's worrying them. And I think what needs to happen is there either needs to be a conversation where you need to have a proper two-state solution, or it needs to be a one-state solution. But questions need to be asked, and governments need to come in and help, because we can't. But the problem is that we have a expansionist regime, which is extremely right-wing in Israel, that doesn't protect, that doesn't respect any borders, doesn't respect anyone's sovereignty.
And is now talking in openly genocidal language. I mean, Smodrich and Ben-gvir in particular have made it clear they want to clear out Gaza of all the Palestinians.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a war crime. It's ethnic cleansing.
It is. And, that's why, and, the UN has been gutted as well. It's been defunded, it's been gutted, it's been delegitimized. And what I've been doing since I got back from Gaza is I've been trying to come up with solutions for what's going on. And, you know, I've been traveling around the world trying to get support for a children's hospital into Gaza. It's a children's hospital that we're going to build in Jordan. So the infrastructure is there in place already ready. We're going to build it in Jordan and drive it into Gaza and have a mobile hospital, essentially. It's a hospital on wheels. It has an intensive care unit, wards, pathology labs, pharmacies. It's solar panel powered. It has running sewerage, waterworks. And you know, I've got the proposal here. It's ready to go. And I'm in the final stages of negotiations with the ben-gvir Foundation to get funding for this hospital. We have a similar concept of this, a maternity and neonatal hospital, which is ready to go into Gaza as well. The reason why I'm saying that, why I've come with solutions and not just here just to talk and just rhetoric and, you know, people being unhappy and victim and this and this. I want a solution to this. Women and children are dying. Women and children are being funneled into cages and gunned down, hungry women and children. You can't have an army that's on trial for genocide to be also the one that controls access to food.
Do you believe the IDF are deliberately killing civilians? Because they always say, we're deliberately killing Hamas and civilians are dying in the process of us going after Hamas. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd say they killed their own hostages when they were waving white flags. They have bombed hospitals with people inside them. They left babies in incubators to rot to death. When they executed those 15 paramedics, I was in Gaza then, when they executed 15 paramedics and buried them alive.
And lied about it.
And lied about it. I was there when I would have children coming in with explosive injuries and they would have bread in their hand. They were eating and they targeted them when they were eating. I would pick up children as young as 2 years old that had been shot in the head by snipers multiple times. So, you know, when they talk about saying that they're only going after Hamas, I mean, you said it yourself. They've openly talked about ethnically cleansing the whole of Gaza. They're actively expanding settlements in the West Bank.
They say Hamas are in all the hospitals. Is that true?
Look, I've worked in all the hospitals. It'd be a very stupid thing to have a military base in the hospital. One, it's open access policy. Everyone can walk in and out of the hospital. Also, the hospital is full of injured women and children. The hospital's full of media. And also, the hospital is a base where all the international aid workers are. And, you know, my concern when I go to Gaza is the children in Gaza. That's my concern. I don't want, you know, there be any military operations out of there because it puts children in danger. But, you know, I've not heard of a doctor that's come out and said that they've actively seen fighting or rockets being fired out of a hospital. It's not to say that something might have happened before. But again, you still can't throw the baby away with the dirty baby water. It's a hospital. And if you're going to bomb and destroy hospitals, which they've bombed 36 hospitals, then let me bring in my hospital. Let me bring in this. And what I'm trying to do with this hospital is I'm trying to make this a government-led initiative. I want the British government on board. I've got the Irish government on board. You know, we met with President Michael Higgins. We've got the Australian government talking about this. We went to France yesterday to try and get the French government on board. Instead of having the Israelis running the aid, I want our governments to take a more active role. I don't want them to pay for this. I want them just to give us the access to get this hospital in and to allow British doctors, Australian doctors, Irish doctors, Canadian doctors in to have our hospital. This is our aid distribution centre. You know, just last week or a couple of weeks ago, the first children of Gaza arrived here in the UK. 2 of them arrived. That's the first time since this war started that 2 children have arrived. Yep. And, you know, they're not bringing any more in. And I understand why the government don't want to bring more children in. One, you know, you saw the race riots that happened in August in my town in Middlesbrough. People were pulled out of their cars if they were Muslim. Mosques were vandalised. Asylum seekers' hotels were burnt down. I know for the government, it's a touchy subject to bring in black and brown children into the UK. Well, this is a way we avoid that. Instead of bringing them here to be treated, let's bring a hospital here. And, you know, it's not just the hospital that I've got. I've also got a plan here to feed the children of Gaza with instant aid. This is a comprehensive 2-year plan that not just looks after, feeds the children, it feeds them twice a day, nutrient-rich meals. This has been designed by executives that have worked for the World Food Programme and USAID. This is a Piers Projects hospital as well. Like, I've got the answers here, and I've been speaking to government figures. I just need them to listen.